Oh, well, we had to go on pause. I don't remember where we were. I think we were on the Colt pistol, right? We had history up until the Colt semi-automatic Colt handgun of 1911. U.S. Army adopted in 1911. So a couple of versions here. I used to have an actual 1911 that was oh, I think the serial number tracked it to 1914. So it was a fairly early gun. It was cool. It had most of the original parts. You gotta remember it's been around a long time. It's in a lot of different hands. It had the original markings on it, the U.S. property of 19 U.S. Army property, whatever the markings were, similar to what's on this other gun. I'll pick that up again in a second. But so it was pretty cool. It was a cool gun. But it was a 1911. Had the original grips. There was a little bit of the original finish left. I had the original barrel with it, and but it had a new barrel in it because the original barrel was shot out, pitted out. Extractor had been replaced because those just go bad. And then I had to replace the barrel bushing because it split. But it was still a cool looking old gun in the original double diamond grips, wood grips on it, lanyard loop, and an original magazine, which to get those guns that have an original magazine was kind of rare. You tell they're original because they're two-tone magazines. Something about the heat treating them, they would only blue them to a certain height. So like here's a stainless steel magazine, so they would only blue them to about here because I guess metallurgy at the time, the bluing would make them too susceptible to breakage. And but I had an original two-tone magazine with that. It was cracked slightly at the back, but finding the original mags is rare. Remember those in combat? Those just got dumped. All right, so I put the revolvers up, but I kept out the 1911s because that kind of moved us into those. This is like I said before, a 1911A1. This is a stainless steel, more modern variant. The attributes on here are pretty close to the originals. There's a couple of differences, but this was called the 1991 A1 version. So Colt brought these back out in the 90s for the market. This one's had a little work done to it, but you can see it had the originals like this had flat mainspring housing, but they had a lanyard loop. They did have a really small grip safety similar to this. This has a new safety on it, but they had a small safety. They did have spur hammer. While these sights are kind of rudimentary, they are much more robust than what was on the originals. I think even if you look back, like the ones we were looking at from the 19th century style designs, they didn't make like big sights. Sights were like tiny. All right, so you kind of have, this is similar in features to what the original 1911s look like, other than being stainless steel. All right, but you can see the smaller ejection port, just the rear vertical slide serrations, a spur hammer, a very small grip safety, flat mainspring housing. Okay, so this particular gun was awarded to me. Actually, you can't really, I don't know how well the engraving stands out, but was selected as Officer of the Year in 1999. That's how long I've had that gun. It's 2022. Oh my God, 23 years. All right, so the 1911, they carried it. They issued it in 1911. It first saw action in the Punitive Expedition, which was when the U.S. Army went chasing Pancho Villa. All right, they were led by a guy named Pershing, and they had a young lieutenant with him named Patton. Right, They went on horseback looking for Pancho Villa, who had attacked a city in New Mexico, raided it, and killed some American citizens. And the U.S. military went to Mexico chasing Pancho Villa. Now, they never found him. I don't think they ever got him, but it did take some of their new things they had, like the 1911 handguns. They were carrying the bolt action model 1903 Springfield Rifle that fired the 30 caliber bullet of 1906, so the 30-06. So they're starting to move into more. Those rifles were repeaters. They were bolt actions, so they could shoot them. Military never really adopted a lever action. They went from single shot muzzle loaders to trap door rifles to bolt action guns. Anyway, so the 1911 served from 1911 until like 1985 or 86, when the U.S. military adopted a different handgun. So there's about 70 years, I think, in service in one variation or another. So the original 1911 saw service in World War I and thereafter, and then in the 20s they started selling them commercially. I think 20s and 30s they sold them commercially. So you can see some of those early 1911s and those early commercial guns are really, if you find one that's in good shape, they're really well made guns. But after World War I, the military felt like they needed to have some improvements on the gun. So this is the A1. So this is the 1911 A1 version that had some of those improvements. I think like the main thing was they wanted a rounded mainspring housing. And the purpose of that really is because they thought the guns tended to shoot low, so the mainspring housing made you grip up, changed kind of the angle of the gun, supposedly, right? So that it pointed more naturally with that rounded, that arched mainspring housing. I think that was the main thing. I think maybe, I don't think they changed this much. This might have been a little bigger. This is a little longer, right? Because people tended to get some slide bite or hammer bite when they fired them. So, but you can see the sights on these, right, are tiny, and this was common, right? Sights like that were common. So people would say, well, you can't hit nothing with them. I'm like, well, they didn't really have sights. They didn't really have sights on them, right? And they aren't their primary fighting weapon anyway, but they were one of their best repeating guns. So that's where you get this. This is a World War II era gun. I told you earlier, this one is a Remington Rand from 1945. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool gun. Probably may have seen action in World War II or been carried in World War II, or maybe even went out on a Lend-Lease program and came back. But it does have all the markings. The thing I think is cool about this one is it's all Remington Rand. So all of this, what you need to think about is at the end of World War II or after World War II, these guns would get refurbished and any worn parts were replaced, and so they would just disassemble them. They were all made to the same spec, and so you might get mix match multi parts on them. But cool gun, 1991 A1, and I think from the looks of it, probably hit the arsenal once to get reparked and not again. So, and it's all one manufacturer. So the thing you think about is, during we could talk about handguns in World War I too, and that would be a reference to that new service revolver. We could kind of come back to that because I got a modern variant that would kind of bring that home. But looking at these World War II the United States ramped up to build implements for war. Everybody made things for the war effort, and there was a big shortage of handguns in the military. The military between World War I and World War II just wasn't very innovative. There weren't a lot of advancements in weaponry, firearms. There were some, but as they moved into World War II, they really ramped things up, right? And so anybody who could manufacture machinery their plants were pressed into basically government service. It would be a way to look at it. So contracts were given to lots of different manufacturers to build weapons, and when you look at the rifles, the M1 Garands of World War II were made by multiple manufacturers. The M1 carbine especially, multiple, like 8 different manufacturers, and then the 1911 handgun was made by several different companies. You had Colt, Springfield Armory. The original Springfield Armory made guns, not the one you know today. It's not quite the same thing, but you had Colt, this one, Remington Rand, Union Switch and Signal, Singer Sewing Machine Company. I can't think. I think there was 5 total. I don't know how many I named off, but this is a Remington Rand. This is not Remington Firearms Company. This is Remington Rand, who built typewriters. There were 900,000 Remington Rand 1911 A1 handguns manufactured for the war effort. 900,000 more than any other manufacturer. So they're a little more common, right? This one was actually a CMP gun, all right, that I got lucky and was able to purchase. So it's a cool gun, 1945, right? 1911 A1, Remington Rand, right? It came at later iterations, right? This is again 1991 A1. That's what got us there, was John Browning and his design. And here's the thing that people kind of forget, is John Browning invented this cartridge to go with that gun. So he designed this cartridge to an exact specification to work in his model of 1911, which was purchased and manufactured by Colt Firearms originally. And that's the one thing people forget. Like, there you go, well, that's the deal. If you change something in the design, does it always work? Probably not. So they have lots of different variations today of 1911. It still remains very popular handgun. I own several different variants of 1911, and it's now made in multiple calibers, and it's made reliably in multiple calibers. So they ain't for everybody, but they're still really cool, and I think that catches us up. And that's a lot of video, so I'll probably need to split that into different segments. But hey, if anybody watched it, I hope you liked it.